Welcome to Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff, where we interview newsmakers, storytellers, and all-around interesting people. Sit back, relax, unless you're driving, and enjoy the show. Here's Jackson.
Hello. I am Jackson Huff. This is Not in a Huff. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, really appreciate it. This week I'm interviewing Fiona and Sophia Robert. I found these two when I went to a film festival. Let's kind of talk about who Fiona and Sophia Robert are. They are the sisters behind Robert Sisters Films. They make movies between acting, editing, producing, directing. They are a film company with a lot of great people working with them. We're going to talk kind of about that company and the mission behind it to, empower people, namely women that you don't have as many opportunities in the film world. We're talking about how that has changed significantly just even in the past few years, but that mission is still something that's really important to them, creating a company that hires more female heads and then also just lets people be in roles that maybe they weren't normally in. We don't have to show violence against women. We don't have to just have women play parts that are the damsel in distress. Or one thing that Fiona mentions is that a lot of times we try to make people equal by making them even more violent or making them try to be exactly like somebody else. It's an interesting world that I really had no insight about before speaking with Fiona and Sophia. So really appreciate them there. But how I found them is I went to a film festival, the Heartland Film Festival here in Indiana, where their comedy movie, The Country Club, was being shown. Really funny movie, really enjoyed it. What I learned, with that there was two sisters, I learned that they were from Indiana and they had made this movie. I knew I had to reach out to them. So that's what I did. And I do have to mention, I could almost get away with not telling you this, but I have to mention that this interview actually happened almost a year ago. The Heartland Film Festival that I saw this movie at was not the 2023 version. It was actually the 2022 version. And through several different reasons, it took a while to get this out. One of the reasons is they have a second movie we're going to talk very briefly about in this interview that was still in the very early stages. They couldn't talk too much about it. We talked about adding a little bit of a blur about that when they could talk about it. That never could quite happen because the editing process and all the things that go into making a movie just took a lot longer than expected. We may still have them back to talk about that movie because we kind of leave that unsaid, but that is what kept on delaying this release. And I finally reached out to Sophia and said, hey, should we still release this thing? And it was actually the perfect time for this to come out because somebody who was in the movie played an integral part. The character in the movie, once you watch it, was named Roger. Really funny guy, and he actually just had a movie come out on Peacock. It came out on November 17th of this year, called Please Don't Destroy the Treasure of Foggy Mountain. At the time that I spoke with Sophia last, it was the #1 comedy release on Peacock, and he's a really funny guy. So even though it was a year ago that I talked to them, finally found a great time for this to come out, and we're going to talk a lot about Country Club. Country Club is already now out on Amazon Freevee. It's also on Tubi, so you can go out after listening to this and check out a really, really funny movie. We talk about a lot of big things when it comes to just starting a movie company, creating that first movie, how they got the idea behind it. I think you're going to really, really enjoy this. Here is Fiona and Sophia Robert.
I'm here today with Sophia and Fiona Robert. Miss Roberts, how are you?
Good. Great.
Wow.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, excited to have both of you. If you would, both just introduce yourselves.
Yep. Hi, I'm Sophia Robert.
Hi, I'm Fiona. I'm the director of the Country Club, and Sophia and I produced it together. and we both acted in it.
Yeah. Now, how often, let's just kind of get right to a crazy question. How often do you have issues with people saying Roberts? Because trying to say you both at the same time was already kind of strange. Just the Robert. I don't know if I've seen people with that last name before.
All the time. Literally, That's a good question, because all the time. And growing up, our mom, whose last name is Robert, had the same problem. She's always like, there's no S at the end. There's no S. Because it's actually French, right? French Canadian.
Yeah.
So it's Robert, technically. But
Our great-grandfather was French Canadian, so.
I like it. Well, you guys have just had to suffer through that your whole life of no S, no S. But let's kind of get to earlier on in life, just very briefly. I noticed that you both went to art school, so you guys kind of get it naturally. You've always been into the arts. I guess my first question would be for Fiona, because it seems like your whole path was in at least the acting film world. And then we'll get to Sophia, whose path wasn't quite that to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always wanted to be an actor, and growing up, my dad was always like, well, don't you want to produce or direct? And to be totally honest, I was like, no, because I didn't see that many women like doing those things. And so I just kind of never thought that was something that would be fun for me as a girl. And then what happened was I was working in TV, and I sort of started to realize that a lot of the parts that I was auditioning for, I was, a lot of being kidnapped or sexually assaulted. And I didn't love that, because the industry was a really different place, even just like 10 years ago, when I was like 21 or whatever. And I was like, 19. And I wanted to make and write stuff that was what I wanted to be in. And that's how Country Club came to be, because I was doing a comedy improv team thing with my friends at NYU. And I started writing this really wacky movie about a bunch of kids at a country club. And it was just fun and funny. And it was so different than a lot of the stuff I was auditioning for. And so the beginnings of Country Club, the beginnings of our company and our partnership together was just from wanting to act in stuff that was more fun.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to unpack both the movie and kind of the mission of your guys' company in a moment. I want to get to Sophia, and your start was not in film. I think it was in ballet, right? So how did you make that transition from the ballet world to what you're doing now?
That's correct. I was a ballerina until I was about 20. And then I also went to NYU Tisch School of the Arts, like Fiona, for college. I've always had a love of the performing arts. And I definitely wanted to be a ballerina growing up. But after going to boarding school for ballet and dancing professionally, it's quite hard on the body. So I sort of transitioned after about sort of 18 years of dance into acting, which is another performing art, but a little bit easier to sustain throughout your whole life. And during our time at NYU, I realized I wanted to create my own work with my sister, who's also an artist. And that's kind of how I got into acting and producing.
No, I think that's awesome. Yeah. And I've talked to, some professional ballerinas in the past, and that's exactly what a lot of people say, that a lot of people have to figure out what that second job is going to be, because an old, very air quotes is, like 35. So there's a lot of life to live after that. So I understand that. I think that's really cool too, that you both kind of came into it in an artsy way. I want to kind of talk about some of the things you both did before this movie, The Country Club, that I've seen. And I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about your world before this movie came out, what maybe things you guys were in, or the ballet company that you're in, that kind of stuff. Just kind of a brief overview of life before the Country Club.
Yeah, well, this is Fiona speaking. I guess I started in theater in Chicago. I did 2 plays at the Steppenwolf and 1 at the Goodman Theater, which were both very formative for me, learning how to be an artist, how to be an actor, and also how to be a director, because I worked with a lot of great directors there. And they really informed the way that I work on set, which is, I often strive for that perfection, because in theater, you get one shot every night. And so it's very detail oriented and you dive really deeply. in the rehearsal room. And I try to do that with our films too. And then when I moved to New York and I was at NYU, I started doing more television. And I was on Younger for, I believe, 3 seasons. I did second, third, and fourth season. I did some episodes. I was a guest, like a recurring guest star, which was really fun. And I loved that whole show. And then I also did some procedurals, which were fun, Law and Order, that kind of thing, Chicago PD. And yeah, and then I was like, I really want to get into more indie film. And I did a movie called Right When You Get Work, which went to South by Southwest. I had like a tiny part in, and I was like, oh, I love this. I love festivals and movies. And yeah, that was my kind of me before Country Club, before our company.
Yeah, a lot of steps. Sophia, you?
I spent most of my life and as a teen dancing. I was in the State Ballet School in Berlin. I trained there as well with a coach, as well as in London. And we had the opportunity to perform with the Staatsballett at the time in Berlin, which was a huge honor because the director, Vladimir Malikov, had come from over from Russia. And so it was a very high level of dance. And then after I stopped performing at NYU, I did quite a few student films and plays. And then after university, I just focused on creating my own work with my sister. And I found that very fulfilling just because we love writing sort of upbeat stories and we love producing our own work as well.
No, I think that's awesome. I want to kind of talk the foundation of Robert's sister's films. And I wonder, just you already kind of touched on it, Fiona, the mission behind it. And I think it's a really cool one. If you could just talk a little bit about what made you guys both decide to start it. You both seem very passionate about the work. Wonder what made you guys decide to start it. And I think it really has a lot to do with kind of that mission that you still kind of you hold with it, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So with Country Club, we had written it. I had started writing it just for fun. And then Sophia kind of got involved. And then I was like, you know what? Let's just make this movie. Let's just try and do it. Because I had a few friends who had done really low budget independent films, and they just got their friends together and did it. And it kind of coincided with like the whole Harvey Weinstein Time's Up movement, Me Too movement, that it was that whole same year, like 2018, we had finished the script and all this was happening. And I was having a lot of conversations with my mom about, I just wish there was more companies out there that were female run and that were supporting women's work. And I think there are now, and there probably were at the time too, but I just didn't see them. And it just wasn't the roles that I was going out for or the projects that I was auditioning for, being a starting out actor. So I'm at the highest level where I could like pick and choose the parts that I want to do and the companies I want to work with or whatever. And I've always been lucky. Like I never experienced any of that abuse or anything in the industry. And I've always worked with really great people, but I just wanted to see more 3-dimensional women on screen. So I just called Sophie and I was like, yeah, I'm going to, start an LLC because I want to make this movie. And do you want to be a part of it? Because if you do, I'll call it Robert's Sisters. Otherwise, I'm going to call it something else. And she was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And so I was literally like at Staples, like putting the LLC form together. And so I changed the name from like whatever I had come up with from my company to Robert's Sisters. And that's literally how it started. And then from there, we just found friends who had worked in the low budget space and who kind of guided us on how to make a budget. And we started hiring people, and I had worked on a lot of sets at that point. So I kind of thought, oh, I know what I'm doing. And of course I didn't. Like you learn as you go, but it was just, we learned as we did. And that's always worked for us, I guess.
I like it. And whoever wants to answer, I just wonder, you've already kind of touched on it a little bit, Fiona, but from when you first started this, this company and kind of the mission behind it of making sure that, women are represented in all aspects of the film world when it comes to writing, producing, directing, and then also getting parts that aren't just getting kidnapped or getting, the damsel in distress, those type of things. I just wonder, do you see the world in that short time since 2018 changing very much? Do you feel like it's gotten better? It's a very short time, but do you think it's gotten better, worse, kind of the same, or where do you think you are now with it?
Oh my gosh, I think the industry has changed hugely since I was even like 19 or 20. I mean, I think there's been there's always like more to go, but I think that there's been so much more consideration of how we're representing people on screen and inclusivity, with when it comes to not just women, but people of color, et cetera. I will say the one thing that I think Hollywood still needs to take responsibility for is all the violence on screen, though, because I think, we haven't really reckoned with the idea that we put out a lot of content that shows violence against women, that shows violence in general. Sometimes our idea of empowering a woman is to make her equally as violent. And I think that's really dangerous. And so one of the things now, I think the goals of our company, I think, have kind of shifted, because originally it was just like, well, let's hire women and let's represent women better. But I think a lot of people are doing that now. So we're still doing that. I mean, we still try to make our sets completely like 50-50, like equitable. We still try to hire female department heads. That's like a huge goal with what we do. But we still hire men. Like, we're not just like, oh, it's only going to be women or, queer people or non-binary people. We've worked with plenty of people that like too, but I think violence against women is now kind of a big thing for Sophie and I, where none of our films have violence. Would you agree with that, Soph?
Definitely, yeah. I think you said it in a nutshell, but we try to hire equally across the board. We do try to hire women whenever we can, and just everyone from everywhere. And yeah, we don't like to write violent stories, because sometimes you just want to watch a movie that makes you feel good.
That's important for sure. There's a lot of violence in everything. Even if you look at kids shows these days, there's a ton of violence in that too. So I like that. I like that mission. I like the whole kind of thought behind this. It's a really cool one. I want to kind of talk about the movie. I've seen the movie. I was talking to Sophia before we started. Apparently, you guys are both from Indiana. I didn't realize that, but that's where I saw the movie, the Heartland Film Festival. And I want you guys to kind of talk. It may be a question for Fiona. It sounds like you're the one that kind of had the idea to begin with, but how did you get the idea for this movie? Because it's kind of an interesting idea. And then also, I guess, kind of just tell us what the movie's about.
Sure. So Country Club, I think, is a lot of sort of comedic vignettes. I wouldn't say that structurally it has like the most put together plot. It's very like bit of a fever dream. And it came out of improvs. So I was a member of a group at NYU called the Dark Day Players, where we would actually do 90-minute improvised plays, like comedic improvisations. And in order to rehearse for these plays, we would do 15-minute improvs, where we would just get up and start the play. And then we'd afterwards, we'd talk about it and say like, okay, how did that go? And what were we doing? And who were the characters? And basically what happened was I was in a screenwriting class, and I hadn't done my homework, and I needed to bring in 10 pages the next day. But I was at my improv rehearsal, and we did a 15-minute improv that was essentially one of the scenes from the Country Club. And afterwards, I said to my friends, do you guys mind if I just steal this and write this for my project tomorrow? Because I didn't do the work. And they were like, yeah, of course, we don't care, whatever. So I wrote 10 pages, and that was the scene where Roger and Northfield are bantering outside of the leaderboard. That was that scene. And I brought it into class, and I was like, here's this thing, that I wrote. And everyone loved it. And they were like, bring back more Country Club. Like, we want to see more. So then the next week I brought back 10 more pages that I did write myself. And Sophie and I were living together at the time. So I would kind of be like, what do you think of this character? And then from there, she and I kind of developed it at home together.
I love that. And what did you think? You're saying Sophie. Is it Sophie? Is it Sophia? What am I calling you over here?
Sophia. Only Fiona is allowed to call me Sophie. All
right. Well, I want to make sure that I'm calling you the right name. So what did you think, Sophia, when it came to, I guess, her wanting you? I don't know exactly how the process worked, but how did it come out when you necessarily the star? I mean, it's about kind of your process, but were you comfortable in that role already? I don't know whether you were already acting at that point.
Yeah, so we were both at NYU Tisch about the same time, a couple years apart, but we both had screenwriting courses and Stone Street. We both had acting courses in our respective studios. So we were definitely in that world, and we were living together in New York. We're still in New York. And yeah, so it was nice to collaborate with someone who was also learning about screenwriting, and Fiona had the acting background already. And we enjoyed writing it together and coming up with the characters, and then produced it and made the film soon after we graduated.
So when it comes to writing it, acting, obviously the editing after, there's a lot of parts to it. Is it all just a very collaborative thing? Does one of you guys seem to kind of gravitate towards one over the other, or what's it look like when the whole thing's being made?
Yeah, I think Sophie and I are kind of like right brain, left brain. Like we produce out of necessity, but Sophia is a very good producer. So she's very good with like the numbers and with outreach to people. And then I try to do a lot of the creative conversations that maybe I have more experience with, having been in the industry longer. So in terms of talking to people once we've hired them about what our vision is and that kind of thing, I do more of that kind of stuff. Maybe so.
Yeah, so I'll handle like payroll on set, obviously with a great team, and then Fiona does more directing. So we do complement each other well in that way. And then, of course, we work together side by side in pre-production, post-production. And we usually sit with our editor in the room. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that, just because I've talked to several people that do kind of it all, the acting, the directing, the producing, all of it. And I always like to ask, which one is your favorite if you just had to pick one? And it seems like the answer is always whatever one I'm not doing right now, because I get tired of one when I want to move on to the next. So to have both of you to kind of split that, I think that's a good thing for sure. I want you guys to talk a little bit about the most rewarding part of this collaboration as, sisters, and I guess it's kind of just a group of creative people. What's the most rewarding part of, having this company?
Well, you go first, though, if you have something.
Well, I think it's very rewarding to see our visions come to life. We've just filmed, we're now in post-production for our second feature. And it's very fun to be able to act in your own productions, and I'm sure for Fiona to direct. And you really do creatively get quite a lot of, it's just really fun to be creative, to see your work come from the ground up, from a script to become a film, and to get to perform in your own project.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the other day, the editor that we're working with now for our next movie, she said she has two daughters, her sisters, and she said that she was walking down the street with them and she's like, "Hey guys, I didn't tell you I'm working on a new movie." And it's two sisters, and they wrote and directed and produced it just like you guys. And one of them was like, I think she said she's 4, and she was like, "Oh, like, what are they like?" She's like, one of them has brown hair and one of them has blonde hair. And she's like, "Oh, which one has the brown hair?" And our editor told her, Sophia has the brown hair. And then she said that she started like chanting Sophie's name. She was like, "Sophia, Sophia, Sophia." And then she told her sister, she's like, to her sister, "You have to chant Fiona's name." And our editor was telling us this story because like, it was just so sweet to hear about, her telling her daughters about sisters doing work together. And that, like I was saying earlier, like I never had that even when I was like in high school or older. I just didn't see sisters. There was the Duplass brothers, there's the Weinstein brothers, like for lack of a better example, but there was never sisters. And so I think it's really cool to be hopefully inspiring the next generation, and even just doing it is like, to me, it's so rewarding and fulfilling.
I love that. I think that's really awesome for sure. I won't even ask you the least rewarding. Obviously, I feel like it could get a little bit interesting. We just had Thanksgiving. If you weren't necessarily agreeing on an edit, you guys got to go to Thanksgiving together. So that's an interesting part of it. But I do want to ask you, just in wrapping up the country club, you talked about how it's kind of a lot of different pieces together. I can understand that for sure. I just wonder what you hope people walk away with after watching it. Is it just as simple as, a good time and a good laugh, and it's not deeper than that? Or what do you hope people are walking away with?
Yeah, I mean, I think Country Club, it's our first feature. I think we improved so much from making that movie as artists. And, there's definitely things like you'd change if you could go back. But I think with that movie, I just hope that people laugh, they have a good time, that they feel positive, and that it's just like a warm, cozy feeling. And, just this idea of friendship across the class. And that is sort of the like message, I guess, of Country Club a little bit.
I think that's cool. And I want you guys to tell us you're busy working on another project. I think it's close to wrapping up. Talk a little bit about that new project you guys have going on.
We just finished filming here in New York City, so that was really rewarding to be able to hire New York artists and make film here in the city where we went to school. And that one we're in the post-production process right now, so look out for it at festivals next year, fingers crossed. And then Country Club, you can also look out for. It will be hopefully coming to streaming in March of 2023, both domestically and throughout the world. Fiona, did you want to add a bit about the new film? Or we're not talking a lot about it yet, but
yeah, we're not talking a lot about it, but we'll definitely tell you as soon as we are releasing information. But we're in the editing process. We're about a week in, and it's going good. That's all we can ask for.
Talk a little bit about, I guess, you just finished up another film, so obviously still hard at work kind of at your craft and doing that. The Country Club wasn't a one-off where you were like, nah, I've done it, and I'm not doing it anymore. So I'd like to hear that. What do you think the future holds? Do you both want to continue working in kind of exclusively in this? Or are you guys both wanting to kind of do things outside of it as well? Is Sophia going to be putting back on the point shoes, or what's happening?
No, I don't think there will be any other point shoes. I think we'll keep writing and producing projects together. That's our goal.
Yeah, hopefully we'll keep doing what we've been doing, writing and producing, and I'll hopefully direct, and we'll hopefully get to act in them and just make entertaining independent films for people like us who enjoy lighthearted things.
I love it. Tell us, with both of you, how we can find you guys individually, your social media, and then also how we can find, the company and these films and that kind of thing. You've already kind of touched on it a little bit, Sophia, but if you would, you start and kind of how people can connect with you.
Yeah. Well, if you would like to have updates about our films and projects, you could follow our company on Instagram. We're Robert Sisters Pictures. Mm-hmm. You can also follow the Country Club movie on Instagram, and then you'll see when everything's coming out and all the updates. I'm also on Instagram personally, but definitely better to follow the companies for updates on the films.
Fiona?
Yep, definitely follow us if you can. And then my handle is just fiona.robert. So you can always follow me too. I'll be posting about everything.
I love it. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with both of you. I really appreciate your time.
So that was Fiona and Sophia Robert. Really, really appreciate their time. Learned so much about, the world of making a movie. I've talked to producers and directors and probably almost everyone other than the lighting person when it comes to movies at this point. And if you remember, I actually talked to somebody whose husband was in the lighting world of movies, and haven't quite booked that person yet, but almost everybody else I've talked to in the movie world. But I continue to learn different things. I learned so much from Fiona and Sophia today, and I really appreciate that. Like I mentioned in the intro, I could almost get away with not saying this was a year ago, because we even talked about Thanksgiving, because it literally was almost exactly a year ago that we had this conversation. But I urge you to check out the Country Club. Like I mentioned, it's on Amazon Freevee, it's on Tubi, both of those streaming platforms. If you can't tell by that Freevee name, both Tubi and Freevee are both free. You can watch those movies at absolutely no cost. I do urge you to check out that one for sure. Urge you to check out their next movie when it does come out. I look forward to having them back should our schedules align. We for the last year we've followed each other on Instagram, and they are both always busy, always doing some really amazing things. They're big travelers, I believe. So hopefully we can find a time that lines up, and we can talk about that second movie that is even at this point is not quite out yet. So more to come there. So stay tuned. Go follow Sophia and go follow Fiona on Instagram. More importantly, go follow Robert Sisters Films on all the social media platforms. Go check out the Country Club movie. I know they would really appreciate that. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, appreciate you being here. Go leave a 5-star rating on Apple and on Spotify. That helps a lot. Leave a written review on Apple, even more amazing. Go follow on Instagram, Not in a Huff Podcast, jacksonhuff.com, Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. A lot of great places. So many great interviews in the past. So many great ones coming up. Look forward to having you along for the ride. We'll see you next week. Take it away, Chris.
This has been Not in a Huff with Jackson Huff. Thank you for listening. Be sure to join us next time, where we will interview another amazing guest who is sure to make you laugh or make you think. Or, hey, maybe even both. But until then, keep being awesome.